All right. Welcome to the Home Studio Craft Podcast. I'm Scott.
I'm Tippins.
How's it going, man?
It's going good.
Yeah.
Going good. Can't complain.
Week was good.
Yeah, solid week. I was telling you a little bit. I've been messing with this AI video software that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
They have specific things that you can make it into a music video. Like
You're using Sora?
I don't think so. I'm not sure. Is Sora out already?
I don't think it's commercially available yet.
Yeah, I was looking into that a little bit. I saw a video of Ashton Kutcher explaining that, where he was like, everybody's going to be their own movie director, essentially. So
it's crazy.
He had early access to it and said it's incredible. But this one's called Neural Frames.
Yeah.
But they have things that make it specific to where it can be a music video. So that, like,
Right.
they have the AI reacting to, you can make it
Like tempo.
yeah, or like different stems, kick drum, snare,
Oh, that's really
hi-hats, or the vocals, whatever.
cool. Right.
But it takes forever. Like, so you gotta rewrite scripts, render a few seconds, and it takes forever to get what you want.
It's kind of like stop motion animation almost.
Exactly.
Right.
Some of the stuff, they have different like motion patterns and stuff. Some of the stuff looks like kind of like claymation and stuff, but it's amazing. You can do it in the style of different artists like Picasso, Van Gogh.
That's incredible.
It's pretty cool. Maybe we'll, like, on the next episode or whenever I finish it, we could add the video of it to
let's
to
do
the
that.
pod. It'd be pretty
Yeah,
cool.
I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I think we're gonna see a lot more of that in the coming like months.
It's like, how do you feel about that? Are you excited by it? Are you like, I see like people fall into two camps. Like, there's a camp that's really enthusiastic and really excited, and then there's the other side that's like, afraid. Like it's the Terminator.
I'm in the middle.
know?
I'm in the middle on it, I think.
Yeah.
Like, this is amazing for me because I don't have these, like, I have like basic video editing skills. I don't have these crazy, CGI animation
Sure.
skills like this. So it gives people that aren't super skilled in that the chance, but
Right.
also there's a lot of questions on where they're pulling from, like the AI, like, are they crediting
Right.
the people who own Van, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
so
Like artwork that they're using, or
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because it kind of the same thing happened in the 80s with sampling, right? And rappers, using samples in their tunes, and like, who's going to get credited for that? And
Yeah.
eventually they settled on like a time, right? Like, if you went over specific, like, I guess, time length of that sample, then you had to pay royalties to the original artist.
it's like fair now. Yeah, there's a big issue with that with YouTube now and stuff.
Fair use.
Yeah, fair use. I forget I think they have it different for
Yeah.
different mediums, but
Yeah.
also just like music being created, it's going to be hard to tell. Like, it's getting harder to tell if something's an AI song. They're
Right.
making like Nirvana songs from the grave right now,
Yeah.
that sound exactly like, you type into the prompt, make a song in the style of Nirvana, their first album, even, like, it'll.
Yeah, I just saw something on Threads where there was this old like crooner singing Black Sabbath. It's like,
That's what I'm
just this
saying.
crazy
Like,
mashup.
Yeah, they do, like, Family Guy, Peter Griffin sings.
Yeah,
It's crazy, but
yeah,
it's the realistic ones that are scary, where it's like,
right.
is everyone going to be able to?
Yeah, it's like the technology is moving so fast. The legislation and the laws basically protecting artists are really, really slow to catch up to it. So it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out.
Yeah, I'm sure. This will be a continuing topic moving
for a while.
forward as it evolves and stuff. And
For sure.
yeah,
So, as we discussed earlier in the week, we were both going to kind of talk about how we got involved in music and like what led us to this point in our lives today. So you first.
Mine might be, a little less interesting than yours, but
Why?
I just you
You
went
come
to
from a
music
family of
school,
musicians.
you've gigged a lot. Yeah, a lot of my family on my dad's side was traveling gospel,
Right.
like
That's cool.
traveling gospel groups.
Right.
My great grandfather had a crazy, I guess, baritone voice. It was insane.
Really?
But
Did he record it?
yeah, they had a bunch of old
So you have some
gospel
old
tapes.
vinyl with
Yeah,
them?
they traveled everywhere every
Wow.
weekend. But
So did you grow up like singing with them and stuff?
no, I didn't.
No.
They were older. They were kind of not doing that as much
Right.
throughout my childhood, less and less.
Yeah.
But I got my first guitar at 6. It was
Wow.
a mini Fender Strat, black and white.
Wow. Do you still
But-
have it?
Yeah, it's at my mom's house. Yeah,
I didn't even know they made such a thing.
yeah, it's
So
like
it's like
a
a little
kid size,
kid.
short scale, like probably like I don't know, 18-inch scale guitar or something.
That's fantastic.
And then my first real guitar was a Fender Squire.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just learned like I would get into the guitar for different lengths of time, like, and then I'd sit at that level for a few years,
Right.
and then especially when I was like a kid, like and teenager and stuff, I would.
But
You know-
what attracted you to it? Was it just because of like your dad or your grandfather played and you wanted to kind of, emulate them, or you generally like guitar is cool, I want to learn it?
My mom's, I don't remember this, but my mom claims when I was like 3 and 4, I would beg her to play Eric Clapton songs.
Get out
And
of here. Any
but I don't
particular-
even really like him that much
Yeah.
right now as a person and stuff. But
Yeah.
but
There was probably something in one of his songs that you identified with.
yeah.
Right?
And she said I would like clap and say Clapton. But my dad was like, I don't know, he wasn't in my life a lot, but he was a big blues guy, like
Right.
Stevie Ray Vaughan,
Yeah.
Jimmy. He played like a white Strat and stuff.
Yeah.
Like he's a big blues guy.
Yeah.
And that's what he liked. But
Yeah.
that's probably what got me into it early on.
And that's why you play Les Pauls today.
Yeah, that's why I play it. Then in middle school, I started, I knew like the basic open chords from like an early age, but middle school, I started doing like YouTube came out. So I
Right.
like taught myself. YouTube is like all my progression basically was through YouTube.
Yeah.
But yeah, YouTube came out, so I learned like bar chords and
Sure.
I would learn solos to my favorite songs. But Guitar Hero and Rock Band, those 2 video games were huge
Yeah.
when I was in middle school. So yeah, that's kind of how
Guitar
I got
Hero
into
is
Les
great.
Pauls. I had like the Les Paul.
Oh, you did?
It was either Rock Band or Guitar Hero controller.
Yeah.
And I would make my friends use the other one, and I used the Les Paul. They just looked the coolest to me.
Yeah.
And I loved Guns N' Roses and Slash and
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Led Zeppelin. So,
Yeah. That'll do it.
yeah. And I got
Yeah.
an Epiphone. At the end of middle school, I got an Epiphone Les Paul Ultra 2.
So
it was
what?
pretty cool.
Why is it ultra? What do they call it that?
It had, the veneer quilt top,
Right.
which was
okay.
pretty badass.
Yeah.
Gold hardware. I don't
Okay.
know. I didn't know
It's like
anything
the-
about specs
The
in a
blinged out Les Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
know anything about guitar specs or like I didn't.
It just looked cool.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about that until like a few years ago. Like,
Right.
when I got into like guitar YouTube and like.
But there is something to say about the way an instrument looks, right? For
Yeah.
me, like if I have an aesthetically pleasing guitar, it just makes me want to play it. Like I'm drawn to it. I just want to play it.
Exactly.
I'll just like look it on and, like those guitars hanging over there. Just look at that and it's like, I just want to go over there and pick that guitar up and play.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just something about it.
Yeah.
So I could totally understand why you like the quilted top. Is it kind of like Nunez's?
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
that?
It was like
Like
that.
that
Yeah. It was
quilt
a
top?
burst. It was like a red and orange, yellow traditional burst. Pretty
Right.
cool.
Right.
Yeah, I traded that for a fake Strat that I didn't know was a fake Strat.
Get out.
Yeah.
So it was they had it with the Fender logo and everything and the headstock.
Yeah. And
How did you
then,
find out it was fake?
I took it in to get like, I didn't know how to like restring guitars at the time. I took it in to get restrung, and the guy was like, "Do you know this is a fake?" And I was like,
You sure
No.
he wasn't just scamming you?
"No, he didn't try and buy it or anything."
Yeah.
But he was like, "It's a fake." And
Wow.
then I started like doing my own research, and
Right.
it
So
definitely
where was it, like a Chinese knockoff? Like you
I don't
even
know. I got it from a music store, but it was sold as used.
Got
so,
it.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But
What did you pay for it? Do you remember?
I traded the Epiphone for it straight up. So I probably should have known.
Right, with no
yeah.
cash involved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just
deal.
didn't know anything. I
Yeah, of
literally
course.
knew nothing about
Yeah.
gear, amps. Like I
Yeah.
just like played in my free time.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's just the last like 4 or 5 years. I learned like pentatonic scales in college. Well, minor, then I was like, I figured out like, I don't know. I still have very limited knowledge, like, but
Of theory.
yeah, like
Yeah.
I know major, minor scales, and I'm good at combining the two.
Sure.
And like the little notes in between that I'm not really sure exactly what they are, but like
Mhm.
in my mind, I've built out this
Mm-hmm.
framework that works.
Right.
But so that's kind of, but that's like up until 20 years old, like I knew nothing except for bar chords and
Sure.
solos
it's
to my favorite
it's a
songs.
constant
And,
evolution. You're hopefully always learning and progressing.
yeah.
So yeah, there's no like time limit, right? There's no like, okay, I'm 25, I need to know this. I mean, everybody advances at a different, speed. And
Yeah.
it depends on how much you practice too. Like, I have friends who went to Berkeley, and they would tell me that because Steve Vai went there at the same time as that they did, and he literally always had his guitar hanging around his neck, even just
Yeah.
walking through the hallway, and he played like 16 hours a day,
Wow.
and that's what it takes to
Yeah.
be Steve Vai. Yeah, he worked for it. So.
I play, how often do you play every day? I play like at least like 30 minutes to like an hour a day, probably.
It's I don't really have like a practice regimen anymore, because I really spend a lot of my time writing songs,
Yeah.
or mixing and recording.
Yeah.
But and so the practice for me is like practicing the songs that I'm writing
Mhm.
and doing that. But as far as like sitting down and practicing, scales and modes for a few hours, yeah, I'm definitely not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
And my chops are reflecting that. So
Yeah.
but
Well, I was saying, yeah, to your chops. Your chops are still better than mine. But yeah, like finding the balance of working, like that's where I'm sometimes like, it feels like there's a million tabs open. Like I have songs I want to
Sure.
work on, but I'm, still trying to always get like, faster and better and, just more melodic.
yeah.
Improve my phrasing. I do backing tracks a lot. Do you ever do like just pull up a quick YouTube
Absolutely.
backing track? That's like my favorite way to practice.
Yeah, there's one guy that I follow on YouTube. His name is slipping my mind now. He's European. Quist, I think his name is. He's got some great, backing tracks, and he's a great guitar player. So that's always kind of cool.
There's one like elevated jam tracks too. They're really good.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Elevated backing tracks or jam tracks.
YouTube's amazing. I mean, anything you want to learn on there is there. It's different from like, when I was in high school, you had vinyl, right? So you're like trying to learn this riff, picking up the needle and, just keep going back and forth. It was such a hassle. But anyway, I date myself.
We'll get into it, I guess, when we talk about it too, but I'm interested to hear what some of your like early first riffs were. Mine were like GNR, like Sublime stuff, like a lot of 90s,
I mean,
lot of 90s
for
stuff.
me, well, when I was in, this probably middle school, my brother and I had this. My brother plays bass. I play guitar, and I had like these shitty Univox guitars that we played out of like a shared bass amp. So we both
Wow.
plugged in. There were like two inputs, and that's how we played together, like starting off, right?
That's awesome.
And we had this guitar teacher, John Anderson, who was a great guy, and he would come over to our house and basically teach us songs, and then we would just practice those songs. So we were learning stuff like the Doobie Brothers or like Bachman Turner Overdrive. That's like who we were into. And or like some early Fleetwood Mac,
Yeah.
and then from there,
So this is what time period about?
this is 70s,
70s. Okay.
70s, yeah.
The best decade of music.
It
in
was
my
a good
opinion.
one. Yeah, it really was a good one. It was an innovative decade in a lot of the arts, like film. It was just I think coming out of Vietnam, there was coming out of like the kind of like the star system of Hollywood and all these independent directors, and coming out of the 60s for music, then you had bands like Led Zeppelin, and it was good stuff.
Yeah, the 70s.
And then punk, new wave coming on the scene too.
Yeah, the singer-songwriter stuff of the 70s, like Billy Joel,
Yeah, you had
Elton
like
John.
the whole like studio musician.
Yeah.
I mean, that's that at one point that's what I wanted to be until I because you have this idealized like view of what something's going to be like, like Larry Carlton pulling up to the studio, walking in with his guitar and sitting in and playing with all these different artists.
Yeah.
But then you reach a point where like you realize that you're not Larry Carlton, and you're probably not going to be pulling up to studio sessions and so forth.
You mean I'm not going to be chugging a bottle of Jack Daniels on stage in front of
right. That could still
on
happen.
a twirling drum
That could still
set?
happen for you, Tippins. It could still happen, man.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Yeah, so no twirling drum sets, Tommy
Right.
Lee style.
Right. Neil Peart,
Yeah.
So that was a band that I used to love too, Rush, at one point. So I like those guys.
I love Rush, yeah.
Yeah.
What's that one album? Yeah, do you ever try to learn any stuff from the album that was, what's it,
2112?
2112, yeah.
No. Definitely smoked a lot of pot and listened to that album, but never really like, tried to figure out like Alex Lifeson's riffs.
Yeah. The Rush documentary is great if you haven't. I forget what it's called.
I saw
it's
that.
really good. They have so
Really-
many people.
Really, really good. Yeah. And going through like Neil Peart's life and just the tragedy that he suffered. That guy was incredible, man. He would just ride his motorcycle like during their tour of like hours and then come back and play a gig that night. Like the stamina to do that, it's just impressive.
Yeah, he seems intense.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, man. So I got started. I don't come from a family of musicians. I think I always had like an affinity towards playing the guitar. I just always thought it looked cool. Always thought it sounded really cool. And I remember at a young age, my parents actually bought me like some junior steel string guitar, but it really hurt my fingers because the action was probably like an inch off the fretboard, and they were like heavier gauge strings. And then finally they got me that Univox Electric, which to me was just the greatest thing ever. And it was easier to play. I mean, still steel strings, but the electric guitar action's a lot easier.
Yeah.
And that's when I really started to pursue it, like seriously, practicing and, forming like garage bands, which is cool. Like some of the kids in my neighborhood and, bands in high school.
See, I wish I would have done that more like I'm doing that now, you know.
Yeah. You didn't play in any bands in high school?
No, like I had like friends that I would play with and stuff,
Yeah.
but I really wish I would have like I have more live experience because now I'm getting into that world and I wish I had it from like an early age like that, you know. But yeah, most of my friends didn't play music. They were like, you know.
Well, where I grew up in New Paltz, New York, there's a state university in the town. And a lot of the kids I went to high school with or like ended up hanging out with were really talented musicians. A bass player that I used to play with, John Osman, is great. He's like one of the most natural musicians I've ever met in my life. Super talented. And there was a guitar player who I was actually in a band with, John Burdick. And actually we named our high school band off of one of the kids in his high school class.
What was the name?
The Joe Smith Band.
Joe Smith Band. That's actually good. The most generic name ever.
It was. Yeah, it really was. It was funny. And it was a great band. It was just a lot of fun. And, you know, they were like, you know, my best friends. My brother played bass. John played guitar. I played guitar. Our buddy Danny Levin played drums. And my best friend at the time, Reed Buderis, played percussion. And we used to do like a lot of Santana and some Little Feat and things like that. So it was really good. It was
what were some other things y'all played? So was it covers or were you writing at the
covers.
time? Or?
Yeah, I think it was all covers. I don't know. It's a long time ago. And I think we did some like original, like just kind of like goof songs that we play. I think we played like some Allman Brothers, maybe some Sea Level. You know, I don't remember all of it, but we had a good time playing.
Yeah, sure.
So, yeah, we used to rehearse above. We had like this little rehearsal space where we could keep all our amps and stuff above our other friend Tim's garage. So it was good. His parents
so
were
at
super
this
cool.
time, like playing instruments too, like do you feel like it was more common then than now? I mean, obviously you're not in school, so you can't really like tell, but like in general, do you feel like the guitar and just that like live music and stuff was...
Well, yeah, I mean, the live music scene, I think, was a lot. I mean, just look at like the technological changes, like, for example, right? So, you know, back then, if you were in a band, you needed a drummer, right? And if you wanted to have synths or electric piano, you had to have a keyboard player. But that all started to change in the 1980s. So, yeah, so there was definitely a lot more of, you know, bands and live music. You go out to bars or whatever. There was always a band playing like definitely every Friday and Saturday night. And like, you know, like I said, the town I grew up in was a university town. So there was a ton of bars, right? So they always had live music and it was great, man. There were some really good musicians because we were like, I don't know, 90 minutes outside of New York City. So a lot of the musicians from the city would come up and play, you know, in the bars up in New Paltz over the weekend. And we saw there was a great band called the 42nd Street Band, where it was like basically all the guys who played on Letterman's band, David Letterman's band in the 80s were in that band. And they were just, you know, top of the line New York studio guys. And it was just, so it was really inspiring seeing that. But to answer your question, yeah, there was definitely much more like live music everywhere you went. And now, you know, it's like, you know, I was in a band in the 80s where we didn't have a drummer. We just had like a little Roland, whatever, 808 drum machine. Wow. I don't even think it was an 808. I think it was like a 606 maybe. It was a small one. And, you know, so it was a new wave band. So, you know, we go out and play gigs and it'd be like, get a real drummer, you know, in Boston.
Yeah.
But it was cool. And, you know, the synths. And now, I mean, you can just go out with your laptop and Ableton and a keyboard and, you know, just do the whole thing yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Which is cool.
So there's a bunch of people like in bands when you were in high school and rock bands and stuff. That's what, like when I was in high school, there was maybe 1-2 bands.
Yeah,
know?
because guitar probably wasn't as prevalent, right? Like,
Exactly.
I mean, we like guitar was like if you were a guitar player, at least we thought, you were cool,
Yeah.
So that was also kind of the allure too, because like in ninth grade and 10th grade, it was just so awkward. So it was like kind of something you held on to that, or at least for me anyway.
No,
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great, it guides you through some, like alone in your room days as well. That's
absolutely
my niece and nephew. I want them to. I'm gonna get him a like a mini guitar for his birthday.
How old's your niece and nephew?
I think Balian is turning 8.
8.
I could be wrong. He might be turning 7.
Balian?
Yeah, Balian.
That's a great name.
Yeah. He's awesome.
It's a good name for a band. Balian. Like
that
a metal
is a good
band,
name. It's
right?
like a Viking name or something.
Is it really?
It sounds like it. Like Beowulf or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, I encourage people like in general that maybe don't have a lot of hobbies or, like I think that playing an instrument is like a lifelong video game.
Right.
That just like there's all different sorts of stuff you can focus on. Like,
it's such a healthy outlet, and it's it's a discipline too, because if for your younger children, like learning an instrument, because to get better, I mean, you have to sit and work at it every day, right? And some days, like all your buddies are playing outside or whatever, and you're inside practicing, it's hard, right?
Yeah.
But one of my guitar teachers, Steve Raleigh, he's a jazz guitar player who still lives in New Paltz and is a really talented guitarist. He was telling me a story about Joe Pass. Do you know who Joe Pass is?
Yeah, I've heard that name a lot.
He's probably like one of the greatest jazz guitarists to ever
I've heard
live.
Beato talk about it.
Yeah, Beato does a great episode about how he got turned on to jazz through his dad. Actually, I think his dad would be playing Joe Pass in the house when Rick was growing up. But so Steve told me that like Joe Pass's dad was a real hard ass. Like he would come home from school and be like, all right, you got to practice guitar for 4 hours before you can, like every day.
Yeah.
And like just rode him from the time he was like 5 or something like that. And, I'm sure that there was a lot of moments where Joe Pass just wanted to like, curse his father out. And at the same time, it's kind of like that give and take, that sacrifice that you're willing to make to become that, elevated artist. So
yeah, guitar. That's like you said, you got to work at it, and
yeah.
They
say it's like the guitar is like probably the easiest instrument to learn how to play, but the most difficult to master, because it's not like a keyboard where like everything's linear, right? Because you've got that linearness of the neck, and then everything also going, horizontally as well.
Yeah, exactly. And, exactly. The neck cuts off at some point, and it's not, said you got to work at it, and,
yeah. They say it's like the guitar is like probably the easiest instrument to learn how to play, but the most difficult to master, because it's not like a keyboard where like everything's linear, right? Because you've got that linearness of the neck, and then everything also going, horizontally as well.
Yeah, exactly. And, exactly. The neck cuts off at some point, and it's not, I don't know. It's not linear, like you said, like a keyboard.
Yeah.
But I love it. It gets you through hard time, like a rough day, picking up a guitar.
Yeah.
But
puts things in perspective.
Yeah.
I find.
So you're in high school at this moment, playing in
The Joe
garage.
Smith Band.
The Joe Smith Band. That's such a great name. You should have kept the Joe Smith Band.
I still laugh about it after all these years. Yeah, it was John Burdick, the other guitar player, who actually thought of it, and he was just a really funny guy, good guy. But yeah, it was always a kind of a goof.
Yeah.
But yeah. So
what happened? So what's next? You went to Berkeley.
yeah.
Tell me about that. Like, you hear people, like, I've watched videos from people who went there. You hear about John Mayer talking about it.
Yeah.
There's that guy, Tomo, his professor there.
Well, when I went there, I mean, first of all, it was like super intimidating, right? Because, you think you're good playing in your little high school band, but you get there with like all these other kids from all over the country, all over the world, actually. And you're just so insignificant, man. And there's just like rows and rows of like practice rooms, and you're just walking down to get an empty practice room. And there's all these different musicians at all different levels, right? Some who were incredible, some were, learning like I was. So there's that. But it was a lot different back then, too, compared to what it is today. It was a lot smaller school. And today it's just, I think they ended up buying like New England Conservatory, Boston Conservatory. So it's just this behemoth now. And it's a lot harder to get into now. It's way more competitive than when I went there. But to answer your question, it was a really great experience. I mean, you're surrounded by music 24/7, but also at the same time, I kind of felt like, I got kind of like sick of it, like that it was just like music. It was like music overload almost, because I, wanted like other things in my life instead of just, getting up, studying, going to rehearsal room, because it's not like regular college, right? It's kind of like the artistic equivalent of going to like a Division I college for sports, because you're constantly training with your team, you're working out to be, develop the muscles you need to be able to perform better and so forth, all while doing your academic work. And the same thing with a music school. You're doing your academic work, and then you've got your instrument, and you practice that every day. But
you feel it took it took a little bit of the. Do you feel it took a little bit of the fun or the like beauty out of it a little bit?
Yeah, in some ways. Yeah, definitely in some ways. And then after basically about 3 years of studying music, and then I just, it wasn't what I wanted to continue doing anymore. So then a buddy of mine went out and we started a band, and then I just started playing in bands in Boston from there. And that's what I really discovered that I like to do is, work within the context of a band, creating songs, which because I didn't really know how to do it myself. I mean, I would write out like, chords and melodies and things like that, but I didn't sing, and I didn't really know like how to develop drum parts, and also we didn't really have like the tools to do that, right? Like, okay, I could sit down and work at it.
So what time period is this?
80s.
80s?
Yeah, yeah, in the 80s. So within the context of a band, you had bass, keys, drums, guitars, vocals. So then we were able to work out, somebody would bring in like the sketches of a song. So it'd be like, chord changes for the verse, chord changes for the chorus, melody, and so forth, and some basic arrangement. And then we kind of like hash it out together and develop like the different parts together and stuff. And that was really cool.
So what area are you playing live at this
that was
period?
in Boston.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that was a really, it was a great time. It was just a lot of fun doing that and learning. And, we used to rehearse a lot. We we all had day jobs.
And you're playing originals?
Yeah, all originals. Awesome. Yeah, that's the only, I've never played in a cover band except for in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah, so never interested me, right? Like I didn't want to play in a wedding band. Didn't want to like not knocking anybody who does that, but it just wasn't something that I was interested in.
So
And,
just really, I've always been interested in this. Like, so going into Berklee,
yeah.
where is your like overall musical knowledge when it comes to
Like when I started there?
like theory? Yeah, like before then.
Okay, so so before I went there, the guy I was taking lessons from in high school, Steve Raleigh, was teaching me theory, behind like chord formulation, like how to, formulate a chord, how to build a chord, what the different chord extensions are, what they mean, major scales, minor scales, the modes and things like that. So going into Berklee, I had a pretty good foundation, and then it just, evolved from there. But that's really it.
Yeah.
And then you can take that to, like different levels, like arranging for strings, arranging for horns. And we would do that, right? We'd have these big sheets of paper. We'd have to write out like horn charts,
So you would have to write for
stuff.
Other instruments to prove.
And then and which was cool because you could then go and get those charts played, right? So, and we would do that because there's just so many musicians there. So you go to an ensemble and you'd give them the charts. And
did people like join bands together? Like,
oh, sure. Yeah, for sure.
That's pretty cool.
You had to do recitals and, things like that. So it was good. I mean, it was a great experience and I learned a ton of stuff. But it just, for me personally, it got to be like almost like musical overload. Yeah. And what was weird too is like, we would go and play in, there's a bunch of guys that I hooked up with from California that we would just go and we would, just reserve like a rehearsal room. And these were horn players and a bass player and trying to think, drummer obviously. And we had some keyboards too. So there was a book called The Real Book, which is basically just a book of jazz standards. And that that's like the Bible at Berklee. At least it was at that time. I'm not sure how it is now. And everybody had that book and we would just go down and play jazz standards. So we'd just, be reading from the book, the chord changes
so in
and
like,
the melodies.
Like layman's terms, like why was that the go-to book?
The Bible?
Yeah.
Well, Berklee at that time was just a jazz school. That was it.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. There was really it was like, you're going to go and you're going to learn jazz. And now it's, they have like everything there. They have like songwriting classes and, rock and all kinds of stuff. But it definitely was not that back at the time. And so this book, which is basically, it was like a pirated book, right? So like there was just like some dude literally on the street selling these books for $50, right? But it was required of everybody. It was just kind of bizarre, right?
Yeah.
Like the number one required book at Berklee at that time was some pirated book of jazz standards. And the book, the book's like this thick. So I've got one. It's in the closet over there.
Crazy.
I'll show it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can just see it's all like Xerox copies of, this all these different works that nobody's getting paid their royalties on.
So it's like a compilation of like
all jazz standards, like all classic, bebop.
But it was written by a bunch of different people.
Different composers. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'll show it to you so you have a better idea of what I'm talking about. But anyway, so that's kind of what it was like. And, but at least for me, I just got so like for me when I started getting into like like a buddy of mine who went there with me, Tom, turned me on to like a lot of the new wave and punk stuff. So we'd be listening to like the Buzzcocks, we'd be listening to the Pretenders, like the first album, bands like XTC. Trying to think of some other ones. And we'd listen to some Bowie, so that to me was like really liberating, you know,
Sure.
because it
Yeah.
wasn't learning like, you know, jazz to, you know, 2-5-1 progressions and, you know.
Sure. Yeah. And you're playing
It's
that, so
free.
you're playing that type of music live, originals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind
So
of
what's
like
the
in
name
that
of the band?
techno. Oh, the band? Well, the first one I was in was we called it Man Ray.
Man Ray. I
So
like that.
named after the artist. And then the second one was Q. And then I played with this Brazilian singer, Jules Seabra, for a little while too. And then basically, and then it just was kind of like the end of like the band period for me.
So that culminates like late 80s or
Yeah, like early 90s.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like early 90s. And then it was just, you know, doing stuff, just myself and writing and
So do you have like a job on the side while you're
Oh,
doing
yeah.
this, or are you making money?
absolutely. Yeah, this, you know, unless you got like a record deal or you could put something together where you wanted to go on tour, you know, you were definitely working
Yeah.
day jobs for
Sure.
sure. So it was,
Yeah.
you know, it was a lot of work, but it was really great. It was a great experience. Definitely, those were like formative years.
Yeah.
Learned a lot. You know, met some great people, really talented musicians. So, yeah, but you know, I'm still working a day job,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, I'm same here. Yeah. So when do you get into like production and all that? Like early, like while you're at Berkeley, or
that was the '80s. You know, we started, all of us in the band together really worked at that. We bought like one of the first Mac computers that we would use to like sequence our keyboards, and then so we would hook it up to a 4-track. We had like a mixing board and then a little 4-track that came off of that, and like a reverb, like a rack reverb, and that was the setup that we. And so we would record every rehearsal, like every single rehearsal, and our rehearsals were, you know, they were probably at least 3 hours every, you know, 4 nights a week.
wow.
So there's a lot of tapes floating around there
Yeah.
somewhere. Yeah. So
Do you have any of them, or
I don't. Some of the guys in the band do, but it's kind of hard because a lot of the, you know, they're old, right? So the tape, like the iron oxide particles, are like, you know, coming off. So I know that they're trying to digitize a lot of the stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I look at
That'd
it
be
like
cool.
this. Like to me, it's like that period of time like happened, and you know, I'm not nostalgic for it. Let's put it that
Really?
way. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I like to, you know, just to keep moving forward, listening to new music, and
yeah,
I don't want to ever be, you know, it's funny. I don't want to ever be like stuck in a rut where like, you know, like the only band I'm listening to is like the same shit I listened to in high school, right?
yeah,
Like that was one of the guitar teachers that I had, a guy by the name of John Paiva, who was actually a studio guy. And at the time I was taking lessons from him, he had just finished playing with like the new version of the Four Seasons, Frankie Valli and those guys. I don't know if you,
yeah, I know.
So he was on tour with them, and
That's
you
awesome.
know, and so he was out in LA recording with them and so forth. And one of the things he said to me was like his biggest fear was kind of not being like current on like what music is relevant, right?
Yeah,
And or like just not being aware of it. And I
Yeah.
totally relate to that. And it's not a fear for me because I feel like I'm dialed in. I know what I like musically,
yeah,
right? But yeah, I like to keep like exploring and learning new things.
that's good. Yeah, I sometimes fall on the other end of that where I listen to the same bands for
Do you?
a few months. Yeah,
Yeah.
but there's
But
new
you're not
stuff
like going
popping up.
back and like limiting your like listening experience.
I don't intentionally limit anything.
Yeah.
I'll just be like,
Well, you have like a genre that you prefer, or
I don't even believe I'm super like liberal with the thoughts about genre and
Yeah.
stuff. Like like if I'm writing a song, like I'm not really thinking about like genre and stuff, and like even listening to it, like my favorite all-time band is Guns N' Roses, right?
Right.
And their first album, which is like universally known as their best album,
Sure.
is completely different from their next best album, Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, which are like piano songs
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So, I don't have a specific genre really, but like, I do find myself listening to a lot of 70s, a lot of 90s stuff.
Yeah.
But I like new stuff too. Like, do you know Polyphia? Have you ever?
No.
Oh, you got to check out them. He's doing weird stuff with the guitar. It's like, it's a little bit of like, musicianship.
Actually,
flexing.
I think Chris Nunez turned me on to him.
It's like EDM guitar.
Yes. I did
weird.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I like it, but it's not necessary. Like I love it, respect it, but it's, if his song comes on in my shuffle, I might listen to it, but
Sure.
I'm not going out to like seek it out. So
Yeah.
I do find myself listening to a lot of older stuff. It's good that you are like, we're kind of the opposite of that. Where
I mean, I like listening to all of it, but what I find myself doing is like I walk for like an hour every morning, and so usually on my walk, I'll just say like, hey Siri, play some music, and might pull up something that I've heard before. There's like, and then I'll just have her do it again.
Yeah.
And then I'll just get some random stuff, and then the algorithm will just go on from there. So that's how I kind of listen to, get turned on to a lot of new stuff. And then I'll just add it to my library, and then it just kind of it builds and expands, from there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of, you shuffle like just, and the algorithm kind of knows what you like.
Yeah.
So it'll.
Yeah. It feeds you more of what you're into.
But you like kind of everything. Like
I do.
I'm kind of like that too. Like I love like I was listening to New Edition earlier. Like I listen to literally whatever.
So. I mean, I don't like. Why would you want to like pigeonhole yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I only listen to. I just think it's so dumb.
Well, there's beauty even in like a lot of the most simple pop songs. It's like
absolutely.
There's a reason. There's a science to it, and a lot of they're doing crazy stuff with production and stuff. So there's good types of music in all genres.
Absolutely. Yeah. I totally agree.
But okay, so currently you've put together Home Studio Craft, which is like the all-in-one course. And so just talk about like putting that together and stuff and the why behind that.
Yeah. So Home Studio Craft, I mean, essentially it was, so I'm still looking to like try to, make a living off of music, right? But something that I can, kind of like that give and take that I can, if somebody comes to me, I can reciprocate with like you teaching them something.
Yeah.
So I just had the idea to basically put together like a series of steps, a step-by-step process to teach, novice musicians essentially how to record and, produce their own music. And it's as simple as that. It's like if somebody finds value in that, then, they could, pay me for the course and then learn something. And then that would, it helps to give me, a little bit of income. So that's kind of, that's kind of the why behind it. And, doing something that I love, I love to teach. I love to help, new musicians. And then it's also just really fun, producing music, like, just working in Ableton and, working with the different plugins and arranging songs, writing songs, recording songs, putting all the parts together. Yeah. It's just, like use your analogy of like, a video game that you can play for the rest of your life. It's kind of like that. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And every time I talk to you, I come away with 4 or 5 things that are amazing.
That's good.
Bits of
You're one of the few.
Well, it's true. So,
Yeah, that's good,
yeah, the
man.
course is great. I keep it up, you know, by my side when I'm mixing now. So it's freaking
That's cool.
awesome.
Good,
But yeah,
good.
you did a great job with it. So
Thanks, man.
yeah, culmination of, shit ton of knowledge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
still growing, still
Yeah.
expanding.
Yeah.
So, all right, brother.
Yeah. It was nice.
Yeah. It's good.
Yeah.
It was a good
I
chat.
didn't know a lot of that stuff. So
Yeah. Did you find out some new info?
yeah.
Yeah, I did too. I wanted to ask you actually before we close out. So, tell me the story behind your Gibson acoustic that you've got.
Oh, yeah. So,
So it's
So
a
I have
It's a
guitar-
J45.
J45. So I have guitar players on both sides of my family.
Yeah.
My grandfather, it was his guitar, but it was his father's before him.
Wow. So what is it dated?
It's a 53. I'm
Wow.
like 90% sure it's a
Wow.
53. Yeah. And it's boomy. There's a little like cracking in the bracing a little bit, but other
Yeah.
than that, it's like, or it's not even cracking. It's like a separation kind
The
of.
glue,
Yeah. It's
like
literally
on
just,
the top bracing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, the tuner, original tuners.
Wow.
It's amazing. Yeah,
wanna
it's
see
super
that.
boomy. Yeah, it's
You should
awesome.
bring that to the next
It'd be
pod.
badass.
Yeah.
I freaking it just we like will record another guitar with it.
Yeah.
And it just sounds different. Like
I'm
it's just
sure.
it's just boomy and
Just
like,
the age of the wood alone, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
But that was my grandfather's guitar, and
How's the action on it?
I'm too scared to even. I'm like scared to do anything with it, like restringing
like-
wise.
Really?
Yeah, it's the tuners are like about to go probably. Like
Yeah.
they're not great.
Yeah.
But the action's great. Like it probably hasn't been restrung in a couple years,
Wow.
but it's the action's amazing. Yeah, it's the frets are
Has it ever been
non-existent.
refretted?
no.
Still,
The
they're
frets are
probably so worn
non-existent.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're not bending anything on it.
Yeah.
But it's amazing. But yeah, so my grandfather, he loved like the Beatles and stuff. He just played like chords and stuff.
Sure.
And yeah, that was his guitar.
That's
And
fantastic.
That's freaking
Well,
awesome.
I definitely want to see that thing.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
badass, dude.
That's cool.
I just love Gibsons in general.
Yeah,
like, I'm
great guitars.
the marketing worked on me as
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
young kid, but yeah, something about a Les Paul. I love like the 335s.
Yep.
This guitar is freaking awesome.
Yeah, the Heritage is nice, man. That's currently my fave. I love it. It just plays so great, sounds great, looks great. They did a really nice job.
What are some of the guitars you were playing in like the 80s?
Oh, that is a cool question. Wow. Okay. So the first really nice guitar that I had was an Ibanez. It was one of the Lawsuit guitars. You familiar with those?
Yeah, I've heard about them.
So
yeah.
it was one of the Lawsuit guitars because, I was kind of like getting to the point where I was like ready to move on to better quality guitar than my Univox, right?
Yeah.
So we went with my guitar teacher to this music store close to my house, and they had these Ibanez's there, and also the Les Pauls. And I think of like the Les Paul standard at that time was, I want to say like $800, which was a ton of money for my
Sure.
dad, right?
Yeah.
And they had the Ibanez I think was like $300, something like
Those
that.
were known as like great guitars, right?
It was a
Like,
great guitar. Yeah, it was a great guitar. And yeah, so I played them both, but my guitar teacher really played them both, right? And he was like, "Man, get this one. You save $500."
Yeah.
So, and that was, obviously a concern for my dad. So, yeah, so I had that, and I played that for a long time, all through Berkeley. and then I bought like a Telecaster, still had the Ibanez, and then I actually traded in the Telecaster for a Steinberger. Do you know what they are?
Headless? Was it headless at that time? Wow.
Yeah, that was
You're
were
ahead
like
of the.
it was a carbon fiber, guitar, no.
And this is still the 80s?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Ned Steinberger came out with that in probably 83, 84, something like that, around that time period. I actually went to their factory to see where they were made in Newburgh, New York. This was like inside of this house, a little small like boutique factory.
Yeah.
And that guitar was a great guitar. And it had EMG pickups. They were active. And the neck was kind of like a C-shaped, almost like late 50s Les Paul neck, super comfortable and warm, like that carbon fiber, whatever like polymer they used to make that guitar was great. And I really like playing it. I played it for, I don't know, probably 4 years or so. And then I ended up selling it for some money and carving like knockoff of a Mesa Boogie. And then I just, and I had like a Strat with a Kahler, tremolo, because like every guitar player in the 80s
so you did hop on when you first said Ibanez earlier, I thought you were going to say like an Ibanez Jim or
the
something.
Jams, they didn't even come out with them until the 80s. That was like Steve Vai's thing, wasn't it? Like
the handle.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. So,
so you did go to the Floyd at some point.
And I still have that guitar. Actually, I gave it to my daughter. She's got it. She doesn't play, but I think she just likes
it's a cool guitar.
Around. Yeah. So, and then from there, and then I played that Strat for, a long time. And then I got, finally went back into the Les Pauls, and that's pretty much what I've been playing for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
So
the shorter scale on Les Pauls too. That I know I was talking about like, the visuals earlier, but that little bit of a shorter scale. I have smaller hands too. Like, I don't know. It just felt.
Is it a shorter scale than the Strat?
Yeah, it's 24.75 inch shorter. So the Strat's 25 and a half, I think. Les Paul's 24.75.
Now, is that scale? Does that translate to like Gibson's acoustics, like the Hummingbird too? Do you know? Or
that's a good question.
Yeah.
I feel like the J45 feels more compact, at least to me.
Right.
But that's a good question.
Yeah. I'll have to look that up.
I know Strats and Tellys, because you can interchange those necks on those. So those are about 25 and a half. But, I think Les Paul, I think SGs might also be Strat scale length. I could be wrong. But
okay.
Yeah, Les Pauls have a slightly shorter scale length.
That's wild. I never put that together. Yeah, that's why it always feels a little different. Like when I'm going, like if I'm just playing my Les Paul, like I was just tracking some stuff the other day, so I wanted to get some like a bunch of guitars on there. So I was just recording some Les Paul, playing the part, and then I'd put the Strat on to play, just to get some different tonalities on there. But it always felt like kind of awkward, like first jumping on the Strat. So I don't play the Strat that much.
So when you're like recording, because I had noticed this a lot, like I'll have like a hum with a Strat that I don't necessarily need to address when I'm mixing with a Les Paul. Stuff like that when you're mixing. Do you like add a noise gate for a single coil guitar? Or, a lot of the stuff I do is like higher distortion. Sure. Like, so that's more of an issue. So you got
that in the background.
Yeah, but just, EQ wise, even because like the sound wave from a single coil pickup, it's different, right, than the humbucker in general. Yeah. So,
for the Strat that I have, they're the noiseless pickups. So I don't get that 60 cycle hum. Although I do have a hum from the electrical in the studio that'll go through my amp. So if I take my hand off the guitar, you'll hear it. Yeah. But it doesn't come through in the recordings. And if it does, I would just use a gate just to
And do you like EQ them differently at all? Do you notice?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I've been trying recently to really just focus on getting a good tone out of the amp and using mic placement, so I don't really have to EQ maybe beyond just, trimming off some of the high end and then some of the low end and then just leaving it pretty much flat and then just doing that. And same thing with the acoustic too. Just trying, it's just kind of this what I'm trying to get better at.
So
Just getting a good tone, just going into the box, and instead of having to compensate for not getting a good tone,
yeah,
using EQ, right?
Yeah. So like mic placement wise, what are some like hard and fast rules to live by? Like more in the middle equals this, more towards the edge equals this.
Well, I would just say there are no rules, so just do what sounds good to you. So you're obviously going to get a fuller sound if you place your mic like right in the middle and right in front of the cone, right in the middle of the cone of the speaker, than you will when you're moving it, off to the side, or even if you move the mic off axis, depending on how you place in your mics. So I would just say you just strap on put on a set of headphones, and you got your guitar, just play some chords and move that mic around until it sounds pleasing to you. And if you're using two mics, I would say try placing them at two different points on the speaker to see how that sounds. So when you're recording, you're going to get a little bit of a different tonality out of each, or just change up different microphones.
Yeah.
Like, don't use two SM57s, use, maybe like a ribbon mic and, SM57,
yeah, isn't that like
that.
the traditional go-to combo, like a ribbon mic and an SM57?
Yeah. And there's a reason for that. It just sounds so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
That's I think they started actually they have like these things that fit specifically
they do
an SM57 and a
they do
ribbon mic.
But if you got a couple like these these mic stands here, you can just position it right. The main thing is like to get like their capsules aligned so that there's no phase issues, so that the sound waves are hitting both capsules at the same time, and you avoid having any phase
and so
issues.
when you say align the capsules, like they're
so
literally in a line,
so
next
you
to
would
the
probably have something like this, or like if you're using a ribbon mic, you'd have like the ribbon mic here, and then you'd have the SM57 like right on top of it, and the capsules for like the diaphragm within the microphones would be lined up with each other like that.
I see.
So the sine waves come out. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. I've noticed like certain spots of my I'll listen to it back and it just did not sound like it did in the room, and I've heard kind of conflicting stuff about like it's more bassy if you put it like in the middle or something, or it's more bassy if it's in the middle and you lose kind of the bass as you go towards the edge.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So, once again, like when you're miking up your stuff, are you listening through headphones, or you're just listening in the room without headphones?
That's a good question.
Because you definitely want to listen to it with headphones, because you're close miking it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to hear, what your DAW is going to hear, basically what your DAW is going to record by having the headphones on. Because the signal's going into your interface, the headphones are coming out of your interface. You're going to hear exactly what is going to be recorded. Whereas if you're just listening to how it sounds in the room, right,
sounds awesome, but then
so you really have to use your headphones.
So just mess around with it.
That's it, man.
Just
and then
stick to one spot.
And then what I would do too is like, if you're not confident in like just how it sounds in your headphones prior to recording, just record. Make a note of what the mic placement was, and then try different things. Record and then listen to the playback, and then just do that continually until you get the sound that you want.
Yeah.
So, and then you can always add stuff on afterwards. So like we talked about, like plugins and so forth last week. So
Yep.
it's just a constant exploration.
Yeah, I finally got the
experimentation.
pedal.
You did
the Marshall pedal, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so sorry. That's we'll skip something else.
Right.
That's not we didn't talk about that on the pod, so they're not gonna know
worries.
what the hell I'm talking about. But yeah, it's pretty cool. I can finally get delays on my amp.
Good.
But, yeah.
All right. All right, man.
Yeah, I think I'm all good.
You good, Tippins?
All good.
All right. So we'll catch you in a couple of weeks. And you can find this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thank you.
Peace.
Peace.